Welcome to the EFTM F1 podcast. And it is week one, race one. Boys, I'm just going to say it straight out. Mercedes did not win that race. Red Bull lost it.
Yeah. That's so cool.
No, I was going to say they lost it big time. They basically screwed up. They screwed up a few times throughout the race, but then again, Mercedes did the same thing. They screwed up a few times throughout the race. It was just like a real chess kind of game, and it was a really entertaining race.
Yeah, it was a fun one to watch. Trevor Long, Conor McNally, Harry Tucker with you. Harry, I don't know. I just think that was a little bit edge of the seat the whole way through, and I think that's something we haven't had for a long time.
Yeah, it was interesting. So even though I felt like we were, watching close racing between individual drivers, it was still very much separated between the mid-pack, the front three, and then, the losers at the back. Like, even though there was the individual driver thing, it's still the same Formula One as last year.
When was the last time that we had a race that kind of was unpredictable to the end? Because that literally came down to the last 5 or 10 laps. And I honestly think the number one thing that I missed through that race was strategy. I didn't understand at all what was going on with strategy, because we had Ted in the pits talking about how there was a potential three-stopper from Mercedes. I swear we didn't see the AWS tyre data as much as we normally do on the screen.
No information about the AWS data at all throughout the race. And we were crying out for that watching the broadcast.
I don't know what was up with that three-stopper. I swear they were just making stuff up as they went to just create drama that was not there.
Well, and that happened at the end too, didn't it? With Perez coming through the field. There was talk of can Perez get to fourth place and catch Norris? He was never going to catch Norris.
It was not even close.
No, not at all.
What did he end up? Was like 8 seconds behind him at the end still?
Perez, 5.5 seconds behind him.
He was not even remotely close.
Not even remotely close.
It was like the weather, how they're always like, oh yeah, there's some rain coming on the horizon. There's like one drop, 20 kilometers out.
It's like it's in their contract to ensure that there's some form of interesting and excitement, which is also, I got to say, talking about in your contract, do you remember at the start of the race, we had the early safety car, which we'll get to, but Martin also said, we're excited to see the new Aston Martin safety car. I think we're going to see more of them this year because they've got a sponsor on them.
Yes.
Like he literally said, I don't think we'll see as many virtual safety cars, or I think they'll use the real safety car as much or more than they would normally because it's got sponsors on it.
Is that something we should be looking more into? Like, is there a planned bin like every 2 races or something that
I think given that's what Martin's thinking, I think that there'll be a lot of analysis now going forward as when there's a full safety car, did it need to be a full safety car?
Yeah, could it have just been a virtual?
I
agree.
The early part of the race, obviously there was a lot of drama in the start. We had Mazepin, what's his real name?
Nikita Mazepin.
I'm going to actually forget his real name.
For the sake of it, we'll just call him Mazepin. Let's just face it.
If that's not...
It's like I always forget Perez's name because I'm just so used to saying Checo and forget it's Sergio.
So we had him literally spin on the opening lap under his own steam, no other car involved at all. So there's a safety car, there's a restart, there's all that excitement. But then I've got to say, it felt like 10 to 15 laps of actual, at pace, racing, all throughout the field. Which, again, I don't think we've seen as much back and forth overtakes and undertakes in a long time.
But one thing that I don't think on that we haven't seen in a long time is, remember towards the end, and we're watching the Max and Lewis battle, but then we saw on the timesheets, there was also the Charles and Perez battle, which was going back and forth. I don't think there's been a long time where there's been such close battles that they couldn't have the camera on both of them.
We in fact, completely missed Perez passing Leclerc. That vision has not been shown at all because they had to focus. And you got to give credit to the director there. You have to focus on the battle for the lead. Yeah. And there was a battle going on.
Well, the thing is, they could have actually put in the little totem pole on the left that battle happening at the same time. They could have just done that.
They do have that cool insert, don't they? And we were obviously watching on KO, and we do the show thanks to the good people at KO and Boost Mobile. But I got to say, I got a good vibe out of that race. I think overall it was a good start, and I think that for the people that watched the highlights, I don't know how long that one's going to be, but that's going to be a decent set of highlights because there was so much midfield passing, there was strategy work, and then there was the last 5-6 laps of the race, which you essentially need to show in full. Let's talk about the end because it's the most important thing. You got a situation where Max has made up the time, through undercuts and pit strategies, which didn't seemingly look like they were making sense. It did in the end, and he did catch Lewis, and he got Lewis. but he went around the outside on turn 4, outside of track limits. And this is fascinating because earlier in the race, maybe 15, 20 laps in, Harry, over the radio, Red Bull said to Max, use the outside of turn 4. Don't worry about track limits because Lewis is not worrying about them at all. So do your best.
And was that just, do you think that was just a sneaky dob from Red
Yes,
Bull over
I
there
think-
to get
oh,
the
yeah.
race officials to hear it?
Without a question.
Yeah.
Because how many laps later
was like
was
five
it?
later, they were
that
like-
It
Lewis
was
got
about 4 or
pulled
5
up?
laps
Yeah.
later,
Mate.
and Lewis got the call from Bono to say, stay within the track limits.
And he said, I've been doing it the whole race. Yes, Lewis, that's why we're calling you on it right now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Max has gone around, and he did go well into the outside of the track, a good metre off the track.
Yeah.
And when we say off the track, we mean off the ripple strips, not just off
Yeah,
the
yeah.
white line. And then he let him pass, and I think Martin Brundle made the point, which was perfect. He let him pass at the wrong part of the track.
Absolutely.
If
Yeah,
you're
he didn't need to do the swap straight away. He could have waited a little bit.
Yeah, do it on. I think he said let him do it on the main straight so that you can maintain your gap. You can be right up his bum on the end of the first straight and then regain your challenge because he literally just had no. I don't think he got close again.
He lost all that pace as soon as that happened, and he fell back by a good second. And it took him a couple of laps, pretty much close to the end of the race, like literally within a lap or two before the finish, to get that gap back. And
Just to get into DRS.
correct.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the strategy overall is what baffles me most. There was the talk of the 3 stoppers and stuff, but they were on medium tyres to start the race. And this is what I mean about I didn't see enough analysis. Because also the tyres are different this year. It's a new tyre compound, which is meant to be, I think, softer so we get more wear.
Yeah.
They don't last the whole race and that kind of stuff. So it's a new tyre, so we should have spent time looking at the strategy around tyres. But so to come in at, I don't know what lap it was, but it was very early, 10 or 12.
12 laps.
It was about 12 or 13, I
Fernando
think it
was the first to pit at 12 laps. And I think he went on to mediums. I
Which
know.
set the world alight, and
Yeah.
everyone then had to contemplate pitting, right?
Well, it's interesting. We saw Daniel start on softs tonight.
Well, he had to because,
Yeah. Because of-
there was the only
they're
way
in
to get to
Q2.
Q3.
Yeah.
But so you've got this thing where the hards, so Lewis's hards, I think he pitted after in his second stint, he pitted after 12 or 13 laps on the hards. And then he had to make the hards last he had to go 28 laps.
Yep.
Which kind of shows that he could have gone further on the middle set, which he said he could have. But they said, well, no, we had to pit you because they were going to come up on us. I just think there's a lot of strategy calls that
Yeah.
potentially were wrong. I think a lot of preemptive strategy calls were made that didn't need to be made in this
Yeah.
race. And that may have cost both teams, frankly.
Is that where maybe that 3-stopper confusion came in? Is there's maybe someone at Sky heard that Mercedes is going to be doing this, and so they're running with it there, and then by that point Mercedes just thrown it out the
Why
window.
would you do a 3-stopper though? It just made we were talking about it. Just made absolutely no sense. You'd go for a 3-stop strategy at that kind of pace. It would be absolutely ridiculous.
I wonder if it also, because if you think of the time of the race compared to the practice sessions in the last couple of days, is that the heat on the track would be very different. There'd be, I think they were saying yesterday they were expecting about a 10-degree different, which will have a huge effect on the wear of the tyres.
I think
and maybe that's coming with it
Toto
too.
was saying we don't know how we're going to go on the hards, so we kind of need to find out and see. And so that's what happened in the race. It was a find out and see situation.
And let's not forget, this year's the last year that we're running on the 13-inch tyres. So we're going to the 18s next year. So I think they've got to make good with what they've got right now before we go to...
Tell you what, 18-inch white wheels on the AlphaTauri.
Oh,
it's going to look good.
hey, they look good already.
They already
They
look
look good on 13s.
They look good on 13s, but even now on 18s, like even the Formula 2 cars look great on 18-inch tyres.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, in the race perspective, I just feel like apart from maybe a couple of races last year, which was stupidly exciting, I feel like there was maybe a third of the race that was a bit processional for us as the viewer. But outside of that, it's a pretty good outcome for the first race of the year, given the tweaks that were made to the rules.
But there are still 20 seconds between Red Bull and Mercedes and the rest of the field. Like, that has not changed, which was the main thing that needed changing.
Yeah, which I think is the perfect time to stop and talk about team analysis, because if you look at the teams overall, you end up with a situation where you've got Red Bull have clearly made ground on Mercedes. I think we can agree with that.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
But here's my question, Conor. I don't know whether you've looked at this, but is that going to last the season, or is this just a good track for Red Bull?
Well, it's hard to say at the moment because we know that Mercedes are going to be good at certain tracks and Red Bull are good at other places as well. We know that they did very well last year at the British Grand Prix, the 70th anniversary Grand Prix as it was. And they also did very well at Bahrain and Abu Dhabi. The Middle Eastern track's good for Red Bull. So it's going to be very much a tit-for-tat kind of world championship between these two teams. But Honda have had to step up this year. It's their last year in Formula One for the time being.
Yeah.
Red Bull taking over their engine program next year, so they've got to deliver.
I just don't think it's a fait accompli that the season's going to be tight just because we had this one race tight, especially given Mercedes is renowned for continuing to push. So they may well continue.
We saw that last year. We saw that last year in the opening race of the year.
But in saying that, Red Bull and Honda claim that they've brand new engine, so they think they've got a lot more out of that.
Development to make out of it.
They claim that they exceeded last year's Mercedes engine in terms of power, but we don't really know what Mercedes has done then. But the other thing, and we heard Otmar talk about it as well, is
what
that...
did we hear Otmar talk about? Oh, you'll have to wait and see.
He doesn't talk much, does he?
The one thing he said, he was complaining about how the new regulations have affected the cars that run that low rake design, which the Mercedes and the Racing Point will now Aston Martin do, and the Red Bull is the complete opposite philosophy. So I wonder if those regulations have benefited Red Bull like that and have hurt Mercedes.
Isn't it funny how the team formerly known as Racing Point did so well last year in a copy car, let's face it, they copied the 2019 Mercedes, and now they can't really get much out of it this year as an Aston Martin. They've fallen well behind.
But in reality, your point earlier about the gap is what matters here.
Yeah.
So we had Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas. Now, Bottas went in for a last-minute pit to get the fastest lap. Let's just discount for a minute Bottas's actual gap, because the gap to Norris in fourth was actually only 9 seconds to Bottas, but that's with another pit. So there's 27 like to 30 second gap between Red Bull and Mercedes and those teams competing for third place. And, all credit to Checo, who came up and did finish fifth. Take him out of the mix for a minute. Essentially what we've ended with is McLaren are the number 3 team out of this race so far, which is a huge win. I haven't got the points in front of me, but I'm assuming Ferrari's next because Leclerc was in 6th and Sainz was in 8th.
Yeah, so drivers. So the constructor standings at the moment are McLaren on 41, Red Bull on 28, McLaren on 18, Ferrari 12, and then you've got AlphaTauri on 2 points, and Aston Martin on the solitary point.
Wow. And that's Stroll in 10th.
Vettel was such a disappointment tonight.
Lawrence would not be a happy man tonight.
No, absolutely not.
Do you know who else was disappointing? Was Gasly.
Yeah,
because he had the front wing damage and had to get that replaced at the start, but he never really made ground at the end. Perez stormed the field from last to get back up. You would have thought. I was expecting Gasly to at least get to the points.
I'll be honest, I didn't even notice that Gasly and Latifi had retired.
What, Gasly retired?
That's what the timesheet says.
Okay, then ignore what I just said, because
But I'm tipping that was way at the end of the race.
It would have had to be.
They just went, you know what, we're done now. Well, Latifi was after the... who did Vettel crash into? Was it Latifi?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
No,
that was
Ocon.
Let's talk Alpine, because this is the kind of thing you got to remember is that was Renault last year, right?
It's essentially the same team.
Were battling for third place at the end of last year. Daniel did well for them to get them some podiums. Fernando Alonso comes in. He's the first quarter of that race. Look like, wow, this is
it was looking really good, but they ran out of brakes spectacularly. There was one particular replay during the first third of the race, and Fernando's front brakes were glowing bright red.
I mean, it was cool TV. It looked good.
I love a good red brake. It looks awesome, but that's not uncommon though.
No, it's not uncommon, but it's like they were glowing really intensely, and so much so that the rear brakes failed on him in the end.
But Alonso ended up down in 12th, 13th with Ocon, which was not a good look because he was battling in 6th, 7th, 8th with people like Daniel in the McLaren. It was actually pretty head-to-head there for a bit, but it just felt like their pace just dropped right off. So I think in terms of teams, I think you end up with a situation where Aston Martin and Alpine are the ones that are taking a good hard look at themselves. They've got 3 weeks to get their selves together because they can't have that continue for any more than a couple of races, or they're
toast, basically.
In dire circumstances to try and get to that, get up that run.
I don't think it was that bad for Seb in the sense of...
He started at the back of the grid.
He started at the back of the grid. He, since testing, he's been talking about how he thinks it's going to take a few races to get used to the car and things like that anyway. So I think I'll give it a few more races before putting too much of a judgment on his performance, and probably the same with Alonso, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I got no excuses for Ocon.
No one has an excuse for Ocon.
Well, he should just not be there. We should put Oscar in next year. Should Renault decide or Alpine.
How'd the third race go? I didn't see.
He
got taken
crashed
out. He got taken out.
Fighting for a podium.
By Dan Tickham, I think it was. And yeah, he was fighting for the lead and he almost won the race.
I got woken up this morning by my 14-year-old son cheering for Oscar he was watching the replay of the race that he won. And it was like, go Oscar, yes! And it's like, it's actually a really cool thing because like I don't remember ever following a sub-formula, right?
And not until last year.
Do you remember that as a kid?
Yeah, no, I don't remember at all. We really got onto the bandwagon of Oscar last year. For those that have joined our podcast for the first time, Oscar did so well in the opening race of Formula 3 last year, won that, and he went on to win the championship. And now, to win the second sprint race and to be challenging for the championship already in his debut season in F2, like he's made some teams stand up and take notice already.
Let's not put too much pressure
I
on
know.
it. You know, I think we could go off early.
But the people, people are watching. The Twitterverse went off. It's
But
nuts.
I think the thing about the team race is that and we'll talk about the drivers in a minute. But if you look at the team race, Haas, that is a very bad start for them.
Oh, terrible.
Couldn't have gone worse.
Alpine, bit of navel gazing required to make sure that they get back on track real quick. But I think they'll have the data to understand what it is. And the same for Aston Martin. We don't really know where AlphaTauri is because Gasly lost his front wing early in the race, so we didn't really get a sense of whether or not he could. And
he lost it by virtue. He lost it by virtue of touching Ricciardo.
Daniel, we're lucky Daniel didn't get a penalty. Anyway, it's kind of weird to be talking so, visually about the whole season ahead when we're like one race out of 23. The chances of this actually being reflective of the end result of the season, pretty low. So we'll have to wait and see. The EFTM F1 podcast is brought to you by KO. We love watching the race on KO. Every single race of the year, we sit in front of a TV with KO built in. We use Apple TV today just because we get more. You get more options. You've got split screen. You can have 4 screens on an Apple TV setup. Normally 1 or 2 on your standard TV. $25 a month gets you every single Formula 1 session on your big screen TV or on your smartphone or your tablet. And critically this year, every practice session is free. So if you don't have the money for $25 a month, you can watch every single practice session for free. If you haven't tried KO, I think it's the perfect reason. It's the smartest move they've ever made because you haven't tried KO, you think streaming is going to be too hard to watch Formula 1 that way. Watch the practice sessions. You'll get a sense of how easy it works or what it is. And we also have big thanks to the people. Did I bring my Boost SIM card? Look at that. I've got a Boost SIM card. I'm going to switch to Boost in a couple of months just to test the network because it is running on the Telstra network. So if you want the full 3G, 4G network from Telstra, you can get that through Boost Mobile. Range of prepaid mobile plans available now at boost.com.au. Boys, drivers. So this is, I think, a much more interesting thing because if you take the individuals away from the teams and you go, what was good and bad here? Personally, I think Lando had the best race because he stood up, he was out-qualified by Daniel, and that didn't feel good, I don't reckon, because I think Q1 and Q2, Lando had his measure, but in Q3, Daniel got him. And so that's very competitive because throughout the year, Sky will spend race after race doing those head-to-heads. Yeah, I think Daniel being behind Lando on the racetrack was a good sign for Lando.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's going to be a massive confidence boost for him. We were talking about on the last episode about, is there going to be that rivalry between them? Have they made it out to be this really rosy, chummy relationship? But they're super competitive. And even though Lando's gone in thinking, he's someone I can learn from, that doesn't mean he doesn't want to go and beat him.
Yeah. And I think that Daniel would be, and we haven't heard from him, we haven't watched the post-race interviews, but I think Daniel would be disappointed with 7th, but I think he'd be very happy to have McLaren up there. As we talked about with the teams, there's no doubt those two will be wanting to work together to ensure that McLaren... See, if McLaren can secure third place way earlier than the last race, it kind of secures both of them at the team. That's the whole point, right?
Absolutely.
You want to look like you're a team player. Carlos did well because he was only, a place and a half behind Charles Leclerc because he had Daniel in between him. But Charles, again, if you look at Ferrari, they have invested well in a long-term contract for that bloke because man, he's shining in terms of where that car's at.
Well, the car is a lot better than what it was 12 months ago. Remember about last year, we were talking how terrible the car was. So whatever they've done since the last race last year to where they are now, massive improvements for Ferrari, and it can only go up from here. And Charles did have a very, very good drive tonight, as did Carlos. Yeah, for his first drive for Ferrari, to finish in 8th position, that's a pretty decent effort.
Yuki
That guy's cool.
I like him.
finished
I
9th.
like him.
I really do
You
like
like him, Harry, because of his radio chat.
Oh, yeah. The guy is just a massive potty
Can
mouth.
drop a bleep on the radio.
Oh, it's even too much for what we can say on here. Like,
Yeah,
that guy is-
exactly.
And then I read an article yesterday from an interview, him saying that he's, even after all the swearing he did on team radio this weekend, that was him trying to cut it back.
We love him already. Absolutely love him already.
Well,
Look, I think he'll be a breath of fresh air. Certainly, to have a new driver in AlphaTauri to certainly take it up to Pierre. I think it could be a very good thing to really motivate AlphaTauri and get closer to Red Bull.
Well, I think that'll be interesting to see whether that's a bad thing for Gasly. Because, Gasly has shone. He obviously had a great result.
Didn't have a
at
good
Monza.
result tonight,
I
no.
hear that, and I accept that he won a Grand Prix, but the circumstances, it's not like he came from behind like Max and caught the winner, right? Let's be clear. But he's a good driver. But is he really Red Bull material? I don't know. I think that this is the challenge for him, is he needs to outperform Yuki every single race. Or
He did well qualifying.
He did very well. But look, I don't think you'll ever
but
see...
the good news is, what I'm saying is, AlphaTauri have 2 good drivers from what we can see thus far.
Yeah, look,
That's a win.
you'll never see Pierre back in a Red Bull car again. But Yuki,
that's true.
different story altogether. He's got nothing to lose. He's 20 years old. He's got everything to prove himself this season. And if he can get close to Pierre or out-qualify him on a number of occasions, there's going to be quite a few people in the paddock that are going to sit up and take notice of this kid. Particularly that Honda withdrawing at the end of the year, and he might not be a safe bet to stay with AlphaTauri.
Well, that's right. There's going to be money required in that team anyway.
Because he is a Honda driver.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting to see. But Lance Stroll did well, I thought. He had a bit of wheel-to-wheel action. It's kind of one of those as good as the cars could go situations for Lance.
I felt like that was kind of the only car that felt like that, in the sense of he was kind of, I guess if you talk about George Russell and Williams, because it always feels like that.
Yeah.
But in terms of just forgetting about him for a second, he sort of felt like the one driver that was at the limit of what his car could do today.
Yeah.
And I felt like he was there, consistent. He wasn't making mistakes, because he knew that he couldn't get any more out of it.
Yeah. The Alfa Romeos actually did quite well in 11th and 12th, given that they basically showed themselves to be not lengths ahead, but ahead of Williams and Haas. Like, that's a critical place for them to be.
Yes.
And they need to be pushing, further forward towards the rest of the team. But it is fascinating to see Raikkonen just continue to just push, drive. Like, it's great to see him when he goes wheel to wheel. It's kind of like when Alonso had those moments in the early part of the race. It was damn exciting to see Alonso going wheel to wheel, and it does feel
With
like
Kimi at one stage.
Yeah, but like wasn't there at this moment where even Crofty and Martin talked about how there was just a wealth of former Ferrari drivers
Yes.
going at it, and it just actually showed the difference between an Alonso and an Ocon. Like, I think, as terrible as it is, if you put Ocon in that same position on track with cars around him, I just feel like it would have been off throttle and try a different way. Whereas Fernando was just like, no, I'm staying on it here.
So
Charles is like that. Just a couple of times,
like
Charles
that,
was like, no, I'm going around the outside here.
There was quite a few moments where they were going around there. In fact, Lando had a great battle. I can't remember who it was, but Lando, I think it was with Charles. And Lando was going around the outside at certain corners of the track. And it was just beautiful to watch. It was just like, he had the balls to just get in there and just go for it.
Actually, you're right. It was Lando and Charles for a good half a lap, just going at it, hammer and tong.
literally wheel to wheel.
Wheel to wheel, and I think the only thing that frustrated me was Lando came on the radio straight afterwards. He pushed me out, pushed me off the track. No, mate.
No, it's just racing. Robin's racing.
You didn't back off, which is great, which meant you needed to be off the track. Otherwise, you would have collided. And in fact, there wasn't any, apart from Gasly into Ricciardo and Seb, what
Just
the hell
stuffed
was
up the
he
braking,
thinking?
yeah.
Like, Ocon flying down the outside of the main straight, the line, Seb comes out and then pulls behind him and outbrakes himself into the back of Ocon and then says, Why did he move? Under brakes. He didn't move at all.
No, he did it
was
all to
going
himself.
completely straight.
He did it all to himself.
Ocon moved less than Seb's hair moved on television.
Well,
this
speaking
weekend.
of his hair, he's very shy of showing his head right
Poor
now.
Seb.
But so is Lewis, and he's got a full head of hair, so work that out. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's just a vain sport we're watching here, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So, can I just touch on Ocon for a second?
Yeah.
So do you?
I have many opinions.
I know, this is why I feel like I need to get into it. Do you think that if he A, wasn't French, and B, wasn't managed by Toto, that he would have a seat in Formula One right now?
Absolutely not.
No.
Not
There's
a chance.
just no way. So if he wasn't French, Toto would struggle to get him into a team.
Mm-hmm.
But Toto would probably be able to manage him into a
A Haas.
Haas or maybe an Alpha, I don't know, but I don't think so because of the Ferrari links. But there's no way without those two things he's in Formula One.
So
Sorry.
you think on talent and merit alone, he should not be there?
No, I don't think he should be there. Am I wrong?
Oh, no, I was just...
He's,
I agree, but it's...
You just want to
he's,
admit it. You just want me to say
basically,
it.
he's just a seat filler. That's all it is.
But why should we have seat fillers?
I guess
mean,
he
makes
must
sense.
sell the Alpine merch.
There's no way he's selling merch either. Fernando's selling merch.
He's not, let's face it, Esteban is not marketable at all.
He's also got no future. I'm sorry. Even under Toto's wing, he's not going to go into a Mercedes.
Yeah, there's no way he thinks he's got the next seat up in Mercedes,
Like,
right?
what do we think Mercedes is going to suddenly get rid of Valtteri and Lewis and put Ocon and Russell in?
No way.
I mean, I don't see it.
No, absolutely
You know,
not.
it's just doesn't fit within. It's, as I've said before, and I'll say it again, Giovinazzi and Ocon don't make any sense to me being on the grid.
Well,
mate-
Giovinazzi's just there because... Well, they're both there because of their nationality.
Absolutely. It
Literally.
makes, see, I said this to you guys when we were watching. It made no sense to me why Mick Schumacher is not in an Alfa Romeo.
yeah.
It just made more sense for him to be in an Alfa
Well,
Romeo
I'm pretty
than
sure
in a
because
Haas.
Alpha wanted the Italian driver.
I
Right?
know, and I get that, but why wouldn't you go
Why
for
wouldn't
someone
you want
like...
Mick Schumacher?
Yeah.
I don't run these brands. I'm just the messenger here.
But speaking of which, and we should wrap up talking about Mick Schumacher, he just did nothing basically. He spun, which in Mazepin's defence, I'm not going to call him anything else. Actually proved that it may have been the car.
Yeah. Oh,
Because
the car is...
so we described it while watching the race, and if you're a Formula 1 fan, you've probably played F1 2020 or any of the pre-seeding races. I love the game, but I can't drive a Formula 1 car with the assists off. I spin every corner,
Locking
even on
the
Albert
ABS
Park,
up.
which I know back to front. You know, I just can't get traction control. I'm just too quick on the throttle. You know what I watch a lot in supercars as well is those, and when you do the halo view and they've got the brake and the throttle, I watch how actually slow they apply the throttle. And you go, oh, right, you've got to...
You've got to be gentle on the throttle.
You've got to be gentle. I just don't have that. And that's exactly what it was watching. It was watching me in F1 2020 with traction control fully off, and Mazepin went, I'm just off. But Schumacher had a little bit of self-control that he didn't go right into the wall. He just got it back on track.
Yeah.
And he lost half a lap. But, you know, I guess no one would expect Mick Schumacher or others to do amazing things in their first race. But then you look at Tsunoda and you go, well, he performed in the mid-pack. He was under pressure.
Being a much better car.
Oh, much
I know,
better,
but
yeah.
that's the tragic thing is Haas. What do they do now? Like,
Well,
how well can they improve in 1 year with the money and the
I
development
can't see
time
it.
they've got?
I
But
can't
essentially,
see
aren't
it.
they saying they're not doing any development to this car? So all the development work
Yeah,
and
it's gonna
budget
go
is
into
going to next year.
2022.
So their car is the same as last year's in the sense of upgrade. They've done the requirements.
They're just
for
here
the
to
new
sell
downforce,
fertilizer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're...
Who knew that Uralkali was a fertilizer?
I did not even know that.
I have my doubts about that whole situation, but I won't air them. But
Can we go through the driver standings for the sake of...
sure, Conor, got the laptop straight out of Belmore. Give us the driver standings.
Yeah, we'll not talk about rugby league and my football team, but
How are
like
the
a good
Eels
self.
going? They're doing very well.
Ah,
so
shut
far,
up.
so, yeah.
Driver
support?
standings.
Dragons.
Lewis Hamilton leads on 25 points. Max Verstappen 18. Valtteri on 16. Lando Norris on 12. Sergio Perez on 10 points. Good start for him as the second driver for Red Bull. Then it's
Yep.
Charles Surrey on 8 points. Daniel Ricciardo 6. Carlos Sainz 4. Yuki Tsunoda on 2 points. Good load of points for his first race.
Yeah.
And Lance Stroll on the solitary point.
Rookie with points, not a bad way to start your career.
65th driver to do it.
65th.
Yep.
That was obviously on the broadcast. But the fact that you memorised it just blows my mind. But
I've been learning from Conor.
And let's not forget, Hamilton has broken another record, most laps led in Formula One history.
yeah, which will always be remembered as a record he got with the car that dominated for 7 years. I mean,
But you can say that about anyone. I like to rip on Lewis and Mercedes as much as anyone else. But you think everyone's like the good drivers have been in their car has been the dominant team for a period of years as well. Mercedes has gone a lot longer than normal.
So what we're saying here is that what we really need is overall in 2021. Yeah, we need to watch more Formula 2. But what we really need in 2021 is for Red Bull to actually do well and potentially win even if the Manufacturers' World Championship, to prove that they were able to gain ground in the hybrid era before we change to the new era. Because otherwise, it's wall-to-wall dominance of an era, which while Toto may love that, I don't think it's good for the sport.
Not at all.
No, absolutely not.
And that's the challenge. Where are we next? Because I know it's 3 weeks. This is
What we're about
to have is the longest gap of the year.
Yeah.
There's 2 weekends off. I was doing the calendar and I was doing a good old Excel calculations going, how many days between the two dates. And I'm like, there's 3 weeks between these two?
3 weeks before the next one, the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at San Marino at the Imola circuit. Yeah.
Back to Imola.
Back to Imola, and I'm happy for that because, and the good thing is we're going to have an 11 p.m. race again, so we're back to sort of reality a little bit. So
Still not reality enough for my son.
No. Absolutely not.
All right, well, thanks for your company. We sit here, we watch the race, and then we muse about it straight after the race, and that's as best we can do without having access to all the post-race interviews. It's kind of the same as if you were just sitting watching it and talking about it with your mates. That's what we do on the EFTM F1 podcast. Thanks for your company. Thanks for listening. We'll be back after Imola.